there's an old saying in Arrakis. I know it's on Caladan. It's probably Arrakis too. It goes, "Do me once, shame on Dune. Do me, can't get doomed again."
Right. We watched Dune.
1984 times,
Yeah, we
literally.
did not watch the good one.
No, well, we did,
Yeah,
but
we did,
we're not
but
going
we
to talk
not the
about that.
good one.
Right.
Right,
But I'm
right, right,
saying
right,
we will watch the good ones because there's two of them. Three,
right.
because this one's also good in a different way.
In a much
In a
different
bad
way.
way, it's good. And
Well,
also in a good way, it's bad.
bad. In a good way, it's
Yeah.
bad. In a bad way, it's good. It's one
Yeah.
of the weirdest bad movies I've ever
But
seen.
Sting is in it, and Patrick Stewart has long
And
hair at times.
Toto does the
Toto
score.
does the score.
David Lynch made some
Kyle's
of the
cock is in
hardest
her.
sets of all time.
Yep, he did do that. Yeah.
And that's the movie. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next
And
time
that's
on
that's
Semi Pro.
it. Make sure to check out the Patreon if you want to watch our commentary for this very film of which we're discussing now.
I will say
Dune
this:
1984 by David Lynch.
if you
Yeah.
have not seen Dune,
Sure.
Dennis the
Sure.
Menace's Dune,
Yep. That's his name.
spoilers, because we're gonna spoil the end of that movie.
Yeah. Right.
Because the end
Sure.
of that
Who
movie is the end of
cares?
this movie.
It is. It's
Well,
the
but
same
not everybody's
story.
seen
It's the
it.
same story. Sure.
It's the
Yeah. So if
same.
you
Spoilers for
care
Dune,
about
the
Dune,
book.
spoilers, the book, and also Denis Villeneuve's film Dune Part Two,
The
starring
Tune.
Timothée Chlamydia.
Wow.
That's his name. So
I don't think it
I'm
might
pretty
be.
sure. I believe it is.
I don't think it might be.
I think it's Paul Muhadib,
Right, I
Usul,
forgot.
Lisan Al Gaib,
Lisan
Wizard Hadarak.
Quizak Haderach.
Right.
For
Yeah.
he is the Quizak Haderach. That was a
He is
2-year-old
Lisan
girl
Al
saying
Gaib. They
those
don't
words.
say, do they say Lisan Al Gaib in
Maybe not.
this
I
one?
think
I feel like I
they
don't
hammer
remember
home
them.
Quizak
It's
Haderach.
it's the Quizak Hadarak and the Muhadib.
Usul Paul Muad'Dib Atreides.
Right. Which his name is my name too, which makes it really weird for whenever
That
we go
is
out.
weird. Yeah,
Well,
I feel
because the
like when
people
you
are
go
always
out,
shouting,
yeah,
you
people might be
know.
yelling or something.
Yeah, they're going, there goes Paul Usul Muhadib Atreides. Lisan Al Gaib. Anyway, so this
We're off
movie,
to a
how
rough
does this
start.
movie start? How does this movie start, Dalton?
So this
What
movie starts
happens
with
in
the
this movie?
Universal logo.
Oh, does it?
Because it was stars, and we were like, "Oh, the movie's starting," and then it was
Right,
Universal
but it's
logo.
not. Yeah.
And if you're watching the extended version, which we decided not to watch, it starts with
Yes.
weird sketches.
Something, yeah, it's strange.
One thing,
Anyways, that's not
so
what we're talking
this
about,
movie
though.
is
Fuck that.
directed by David Lynch,
Mhm.
who you're not a fan of, and I like some of his
Don't
stuff.
love him. No.
I like David Lynch on a leash.
I like
David Lynch
this,
with a leash is
yeah.
great.
I like this.
And this is
my favorite David Lynch thing I've ever seen.
this is David Lynch on a leash for
so,
sure, like to a
right.
T. The first season of Twin Peaks is David Lynch on a leash. The second season of Twin Peaks, and then
Sure.
the Twin Peaks: The Return is David Lynch just running free down the street, about to get hit by a car.
Wish he would. But that's neither here nor there.
What to do about Jack? I think is another David Lynch movie.
If you're just going to talk about David Lynch for a while,
I'm not. Give me a second. I'm kind of setting up.
I get it.
setting up
David
the
Lynch on a
movie.
leash. I understand the idea.
This movie is not David Lynch on a leash. This movie is just David Lynch being David Lynch. Or no, this movie is David Lynch on a leash.
Yes. Well,
he hates it because of that. So we watched the little bit of the extended cut. David Lynch famously credits this movie as like, number one, it's the stain on his career that he hates.
Yeah, David. This is the stain. This is the stain on your career. All right.
It's the least critically acclaimed of his movies. Acclaimed?
The what? The critically acclaimed?
No. So he blames it on not getting final cut. So his whole thing is like, I didn't get the final cut of the movie, and I didn't get to decide what this movie was.
Release the Lynch cut, yeah.
Right. So they released an extended cut of this movie where he was credited as Alan Smithy, which is hilarious.
Sure.
But you can see the elements. If you're a David Lynch fan, you can see the elements of him throughout this, but it's not a David Lynch movie.
It's very Lynchy, but it's not. a
When
Lynch
when
movie.
I describe a movie as Lynchian, this is probably what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's the weird visuals, the cheap
Yeah,
looking special effects.
it feels like a David Lynch-esque movie that's not a David Lynch movie
It's sort
while
of
being a David Lynch
otherworldly
movie. Right. Well, yeah. No, and I mean I think
because it's
this is
Dune.
right. Well, this I think this works especially cuz the weird David Lynch gross psychedelic visuals work with the Dune story, the
For
weird
sure.
psychedelic witch spice, all that shit rolled up into to gross David Lynch isms,
It works
but
really
but
well.
but restrained enough to not be
A studio
just
stepped in
David
and
Lynch.
said,
Yeah,
"David, this movie has to make
calm down.
sense."
Like, look, we gave
Right.
you the melting hand. We gave you the guy floating in space. All right, you're gonna need to calm down. We gave you the worm mutant people that fly fold space. That's from the
Well,
book, I
that's from
know,
the
but
book.
I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm sure
We
the
gave you
the
what they look
design
like.
stuff,
Yeah,
yeah, is
right.
more what I mean.
So this movie opens like it opens with narration from the Emperor's daughter,
It's Florence
and it's
Pugh.
exposition.
This
Exposition.
movie is all exposition.
Basically, yeah. And I guess that's what happens when you adapt a really long book into one movie
Right.
and have to include stuff from the book to make it make sense. Because with some books, like Jaws is a really long book, and that movie they're just like,
Sure.
all right, it's a big shark, and then they threw
It's a
the
big
book
shark.
away and just did their
And
own thing.
there is Brody and they are on the boat and and he goes, that's the thing about they got white eyes like a doll's eyes.
Which, from what I
Don't seem to be
understand,
living at all.
from what I
Till they
understand,
bite you. Her
the
eyes
version of
roll over
Dune,
like
yeah.
version of Jaws. Are you doing Jaws right now?
From what I understand, the version of Dune that was supposed to come before this, which was Hodorowski's Dune, was more like that. Like they threw out most of the book stuff and then just
Gotcha.
made this
And it was
planet
just
whatever.
sure.
And David Lynch didn't want to do that. So he's directing the book pretty straightforward. And there's a lot of just exposition dump. The whole opening 2 minutes, exposition dump. Then we cut to another scene thinking we're done with exposition dump, more exposition dump. That ends, we go to the Emperor's chambers, and it's a sick looking shot, and it's awesome. And we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Dump.
And it's exposition dump. And then we jump to Paul Atreides, and we get more
And then
exposition dump. And now we're finally in the movie.
dump.
Right, like it took 15 minutes for the movie to start before we're out of exposition. What saved that entirely
is that it looks so cool.
It
Everything looks
so
great.
Cool.
Even though
looks
it's I don't care about the stuff that they're talking about or thinking, narrating about, whatever. It looks awesome. The sets are great. It sounds great. Lovely Toto score.
Yes, it's the
Dune. Right, it goes Dune. Great sets, great costumes. Kyle MacArthur is in it, and he looks cool. That's his name.
Does look. That is his name.
Uncle Barry.
He does look cool.
Yeah, he's got an Uncle Barry.
And Joe Rogan, Thanos.
Joseph Brolin.
Joe Brolin.
Yehoshua Brolin.
Josh Brolin walks in, but instead of being Josh Brolin, he's Patrick Stewart.
Right.
And he's carrying his lyre. His little lyre.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Sure,
which he plays in the second movie, but not in the first movie. Because that's a thing from the book. Anyway, and so they do the fight, and the shields come out, and the shields are
the shields. I almost forgot.
Can't.
Yeah. So the shields are bad. Every good thing I've said about the cool visual style and good high quality visuals is gone, and the opposite can be said for these shields.
They look decent for 84.
I'm sure, but they look stupid also. They also look ridiculously dumb.
Sure, but for 1984, I don't mean like the design. The design is still dumb. But the effect is good for 84.
It's fine for 84.
It's
it's
better than
worse.
half of the effects in this movie.
Sure, yeah. I was gonna say it's worse than half of the effects, so both
Which,
are
if
true.
we're at
Yeah,
half, yeah.
that's yeah. But yeah, so for anyone who hasn't seen this movie that for some reason is watching this
Look it up. Look
discussion,
up a
which thanks,
clip.
look it up. But I mean, it's I really I can't describe it.
They're in
It's
cardboard boxes that are slightly
cardboard
transparent.
boxes that are transparent. It looks like a
Plexiglass?
weird, yeah, like Roblox plexiglass. It's
It looks like
strange.
Roblox. That's what it is.
It looks like Roblox. Life is Roblox.
If you've made it to this point in the episode, I want you to go ahead and hit that share button really quickly.
Yep, yep.
Hit
Like
that
and
share
subscribe while
button.
you're down there. Ring the bell. Who are we share? Who are our fan? All our loyal subscriber fans sharing with this time?
I think
Dildo
today I
Derek.
want you to send this specifically to your boss. Whoever your boss
Okay.
is, I want you to send this to your boss
Interesting.
with no context. I want you to just share it,
That's a
text it to your
bold one.
boss. And
Now, would
if
you
they
send
like
this
it,
to your boss?
no.
Dalton?
But I
Right.
want them
But
to.
do as I say, not as I do, right?
Right.
that's
Also,
that's how the saying goes.
look, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If your boss likes it, you could get a raise. If your boss
Sure.
hates it, you could get fired. You're gambling. Now you have a
Right.
chance to gamble. So just
Right.
go ahead and
Like
send this to your
gambling, and the thing about gambling is you can always win.
boss most of the time.
Say you get a raise. No, always. Say you get a raise. Boom. Now you have more money to go to the casino and gamble.
Right?
You get fired. Okay, severance package.
You get
and
fired.
You can also you get on welfare and unemployment. Use that money to gamble.
Well, I was going to say you get
Think
fired,
about it.
you get another job, you send this video to your next boss.
Right.
Eventually, you'll have a boss who likes it and gives you a raise.
Yeah, and just keep doing that, and also keep gambling just keep gamble all your money.
Right.
You can
Anybody
always win
else we want our friends to send this to?
I'd say maybe your if you have a teacher like a high school teacher that you were like close with, that you like maybe like follow on like social media, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like for whatever, like any teacher, past teacher or maybe current teacher, maybe you're in high school listening to this, whatever.
Yeah, just like a
send
chill
this to
teacher.
them. Chill
Yeah.
teacher that you have on social media, send it to them. I think they'd like it.
That's a good one. Also, like we said last week, go ahead and trap a cockroach in a cup and put the video on for them. If you're listening on
Also,
Spotify,
next
iTunes, we have
time-
video of this available
Next
on
time
YouTube.
you're in a public bathroom, if you have a pen or a Sharpie, which if you're listening to this right now and you're at home and you plan on maybe being out at some point where you think you'd have to be in a public bathroom, grab a Sharpie, just pop it in your
Keep it in your
pocket, your purse, your butt, wherever you keep Sharpies. I don't judge.
Keep it in your car so that when you have to
Yeah.
pee and you stop, it's there.
Right. And just write, listen to the Semi-Pro Film Show on the thing. Maybe add a little joke, a little drawing, whatever you want to add. Take a picture of that.
Draw the logo. Draw the Semi-Pro logo.
Draw the logo, yeah. Or just draw something else. Maybe just draw like a little penis or
right. That's what you do in bathrooms, right?
I mean, that's you gotta, right?
All
right. You don't have
that was
to.
good.
Maybe draw a Ninja Turtle. All right.
But yeah, we do.
So,
we very much appreciate you sharing this.
Thank you to everyone.
Liking the video, all of those things. That helps us out a ton.
Thanks to everyone who's listening.
And the Patreon.
Patreon. Yep.
Patreon.com.
Check that out.
Yeah. All right. Now back to the movie.
Where are we at? The box Roblox. Those just busted out. Yeah, so that happens. It's the scene from Dune 1 where they fight, and then he says, "I got you." Oh, but I also got you.
The first half of this movie are from Dune.
Right. 1. Yeah. Except for the space travel.
Right, which they dropped, but we're not there yet.
No, we almost are. So it's okay. Yeah, they're
we got the box. because no
Right,
man
the
has ever been
box.
tempted by the box.
Yeah, but so it's the Atreides are going to the Arrakis, and also Paul has been groomed and bred to be the Kwisatz Haderach.
Right. Well,
And
and
his
the thing
mom
on
takes
Atreides
him to
is, if you're not aware for whatever reason,
mm,
there's a group of people called the Harkonnens, or in this movie they say the Harkonnens, or no, maybe it's the
sure.
new movie where they say the Harkonnens.
I
Anyway,
don't care.
doesn't
Harkonnens,
matter.
Harkonnens, Hokoko.
They're on this planet. They've been controlling the production of spice, which is a
Mhm.
super important thing for the universe for
It's
like
it's
80
oil.
years.
It's oil, and it
It's
gets you high.
oil. It travel. It helps space
It helps
travel.
space travel, and it
It
gets
helps
you
them
high. Yeah,
travel,
it's
but
all
yeah, it also gets you high. And so the Harkonnens are being kicked off the
right,
planet
just
by
like
the
oil.
Emperor. And this movie, they say that it's because the Emperor, he's scared of the new sound weapon that the
Yes,
Atreides are
he's
working on,
scared of the yeah,
which is made up for this movie, which is
also
fine.
which is also the weirding way,
Right. The
or
Weirding Way, which
a
in
part of the weirding way.
right. Which
Because
in the
whatever,
movie, the Weirding Way, or in the movie, in the book, the Weirding Way is just a style of
it's a
fighting.
fighting thing, yeah. And
But
in
in
this,
this, it's
it's that, and also this weird sound weapon.
which is cool.
That's
That's fine.
yeah, that's whatever. Who cares? It's sure.
Um, but yeah, so the Emperor, to as a plot to destroy the
Right, Christopher Walken here.
Atreides, right?
He's
But
Christopher
not Christopher
Walken here.
Walken. This guy does a
No,
really
not
good
yet.
job as Emperor, though.
He's fun. I mean, he's no Christopher Walken here, but he's
Right.
walking here.
They, yeah, they, the Emperor decides to send the Atreides family to Arrakis and kick off
Well,
the
because
Harkonnens.
there's a saying in Arrakis. I know it's in Caladan. It's probably in Arrakis
Right.
too. I mean, dune me once, shame on you. Dune me can't get duned again.
Right. Right. I think it's Dune
Hmm?
Me Once, Shame on Dune. Dune Me, or
Well, I've heard it. I've heard it both ways. I've
right.
heard it both
Right.
dunes. I've duned it both.
So yeah, but Paul is having weird visions and dreams, and they're super trippy and cool in
Yes.
this movie.
Yeah, they're dope. Very, very cool and psychedelic and weird.
Very Lynchian.
He's like floating in space, and there's a hand and shit, and
Right, lots of hands.
it's
There's
all a
the
lot of
second moon.
hands.
You see a little drip, drip,
And the
drip of the
moon, which is
water.
whatever, drip, a lot of dripping in water, a lot of
But
shit.
yeah, so the Reverend Mother who heard the Emperor talking about Paul to the Spacing Guild at the beginning of the movie decides to go pay Paul a
Right, right,
visit and make him face the box, because no man has ever been tempted by the box.
right. What's in the box?
Well, no man's ever been tempted by a box.
Right. I know. I certainly haven't.
No man has ever been tempted by a box.
No man has ever been tempted by a box.
But what's in
Yo,
the box?
comment down below if you're a man that's been tempted by the box. Hey,
Put your hand in the
Hey,
box.
Dalton, put your hand in the box.
What's in
What's
the
in the box?
box?
Your
Your
hand.
hand. So Paul
So he
Atreides
puts his hand
in
in
a
the box,
box.
and unlike Denis Villeneuve's Dune, Denis
You actually
Villeneuve,
see it.
he sees it, and it's cool. It's dope.
Yeah,
It's his
I
hand
thought that
melting, and
too.
it's mm,
Until after I saw this, I was like, "Oh, they don't show that in the new one," but they
right. Do they
do.
not? Do they really?
Was
I
sort
feel
of.
like I
It's
just
just like
watched that.
in his pain, he gets like this vision of a charred
Oh,
hand.
there's like flashes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, they show the
Either
flesh
way,
melting
this
off
one's
of this
cool. It's
one.
melting, and it's grotesque, and it's weird. It's like an acid looking burn. Real cool.
And then they say no woman has ever survived that much pain. She's never
Right.
survived that much gom jabbar.
Yeah.
Because the gom jabbar is a little
That
needle at the neck.
that Jabbar gum. You know what I'm saying?
Who up 12 a.m. Jamine Gabar?
Not me. But that happens. Then
The next
Duncan
thing
Idaho
happens.
is there, and he
Duncan
looks
Idaho, he looks like
stupid.
he'd do your taxes, and
He's
he's
just
like, "Hey, I'm Duncan
some
Idaho."
stupid looking
He
fucking
doesn't
idiot.
matter in this movie
He's
at
some
all.
schlub.
They
Yeah.
legitimately, for the sake of the plot, they should have cut him entirely.
Right. Do they
Now
even
you
show
can't.
his death?
They did.
I don't even
The problem
remember.
is, if there's even a slight chance of a sequel, you can't cut
Right.
Duncan
You
Idaho.
gotta, yeah.
And
So he's
so,
there, and then he dies at some point, but
and then we
whatever.
meet Duke Leto Atreides, who
Yeah,
is
Willem
Willem Dafoe,
Dafoe, but with a beard.
Beardem Dafoe,
No, probably
Willem
not.
de Beard.
Fortnite.
Right. And then we
That's
go
what
to
it says in the
Arrakis.
lighthouse, and then we're on Arrakis, and
No, but before that we go into the big ship that makes the little ships go to the new place.
right then the big mutant worm people fold space because they're high on that spice.
Right. And that's how it works. And it's not really explained, but it is in the books. And it's like they
Yeah,
take
and you
spice
see
and
it.
then they can point at one planet and point at another planet. And suddenly there's a bridge between the two planets.
Yeah, because sure,
Why
why not?
not? It's like
Yeah,
so much other weird stuff happens. Why wouldn't that be happening?
right. So that happens, and then boom, new planet Arrakis, and then they're there, and then Kyle Muhadim gets just a little bug thing. Doesn't look like a bug in this one, but it was a
Right.
bug in the new one. It's just like a little syringe in this that flies, and
And he
it.
thinks the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, he's so much thinking, so much expositional
Is this a
thoughts.
good time to talk about the expositional thinking?
It's as good a time as any. Yeah.
It's easily the
So
worst part of this movie. And I love
yeah.
this
Well,
movie.
there's so much
It happens
because
so
it's
often.
they this movie is 2 hours long, and it is an adaptation of a long ass book that, when adapted well and properly, was 6 hours between two movies. So, to make up for that, there's just a
Lots of thinking.
whole lot of yapping, but it's
And
not yapping. They're just thinking about their yapping.
look,
You
it's
know?
over the course of the time that they've made 3 adaptations of Dune. There's this movie,
Mm-hmm.
there's the sci-fi miniseries, and then there's a new set of movies. Each one has
Yeah.
gotten longer than the last, and rightfully so, because that book is dense. I mean, we're
Right.
probably talking an hour and a half plus an hour and a half is 3 hours. We're probably taking 4.5 hours for the sci-fi miniseries. So it's like
Right.
you have 2 hours, 4.5 hours. Now we're at 6 hours, and it's like each time it's
Right.
like, okay, this feels justified. Like we need more time.
Yeah.
But the solution to that in this, when David Lynch read the book and adapted the screenplay, and I would assume this is in the screenplay, his
Surely.
solution to fix that
Because it's just, I
was
mean, it's every other scene is just whatever character needs to have something explained what's happening. It's just
they think it.
they think about what's
And
happening.
sometimes it's
It's,
completely
I
unnecessary.
am on Arrakis. Yeah, like sometimes it's obvious. It's okay. I just saw that, or I can tell that's happening.
That's a
But I mean,
sandworm, and it's just coming from his
right?
mind, and I'm like, this
Yeah,
is not necessary
but
here.
a lot of the
Like, do
times,
we don't need to
admittedly, it
know what the
probably
name of the
is.
sandworm is.
Right. And also, it doesn't need to be mentally monologued like that. Like it can just be like oh, this doctor science whatever guy can just be like, oh, that's a sandworm.
Right. It's
or
definitely
or
the lazy
Oscar
way out.
Defoe can just be like, oh, what's that? Is that a sandworm? Yeah, it is. Good eye. Which is a
Right.
line from this that they say also.
But
So
we're at
yeah,
Arrakis.
Arrakis, he
We meet the
gets attackist.
we meet the maid.
Right.
She
Yeah.
dies pretty quick. I mean, it's whatever. She's one of the like fortune tellers. Like, she believes in Muad'Dib
Yeah.
or whatever is Fremen. What's
Lisan al
the
Gaib.
Lisan al Gaib?
Quizak Quizak Haderach
Quizak
Muad'Dib.
Haderach is the
That's
Ben
the Bene
Gesserit one.
Gesserit,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
Whatever, dude. I don't give a fuck.
and the splot the
It's the
splot
bad guy from the Star Wars. The what?
the splot kind of
I
speeds
don't
along
even.
at this point
Oh,
because
sure,
it
sure.
like if you look at the first movie, this is the chunk of it. Like this is the middle chunk of
Yeah,
the movie, and it's like the quickest part of this one, which is makes sense.
sure,
It's
yeah.
it's the least important. Them establishing what life on Arrakis is like is the least important part of the overall story.
Right.
So they don't do any of
They,
that.
they, yeah.
I
Then
mean, they
they
just
blaze.
gloss it.
They blaze through the whole attack. Attack on Arrakis from the Harkonnens or Harkonnens, whatever. There's the little bug thing. The maid dies. The doctor betrays him and tells Leto his plan after he dies or doesn't almost dies. Gives him the poison tooth. Spoiler alert: it doesn't work in this either, but for a different reason. But then something else happens. Oh, I guess Paul and his mom get captured because then they're on they're on the ship, and it's the it's the scene. Damn mayfly in my room. It's the scene from Dune where there's the voice. He uses the voice. He's not very good at it, but he's good enough to get his mom's voice
Right.
blocker off, and then she uses it to kill their attackers, their
And this
captors,
whole
whatever.
time, they do stretch the plot a little bit here, because the whole time we're jumping back to Giddy Prime, which is the
Right?
Harkonnens'
Yes.
planet.
Yeah.
It's the sickest set design in the whole
Getty Prime
movie.
is dope. Yeah.
You can tell it's where David Lynch was having the most fun designing, because
Right.
the sets, we've talked about how much we like the sets. The sets are so good.
They're very unique, and they're very good at showing like what they're meant to represent. Like
Right. Like Caladan is
the
very
Caladan one is
organic.
super. Yeah, it's super. This very cool, organic, natural. A lot of natural lighting and wood and all that shit. But it's still fancy looking and cool. And then it's this cold industrial steel
Oh,
on Getty
dude.
Prime. It's
Cold
just
is the best way to
super
describe
dark.
it.
Yeah, that
Um,
shit cold.
and we meet the Baron, and he's
Yeah,
disgusting.
he's grotesque and horrible. He
And
floats, and it's
at
very
one point,
funny.
he starts like sweating oil,
Mm,
which might be from the book.
yeah, maybe, who knows? Or that's
He
just
starts like
David Lynch.
sweating
But he
oil.
sweats the oil, and he this is when he's floating, and he pulls that dude's the little guy's blood pump
Tube.
thing. But I don't know. It's just weird, dude.
Yeah, and
But
then we meet Dave Bautista and Elvis.
yes, Dave
Dave
Bautista and
Bautista
Elvis.
played by somebody who knows, and Elvis
Who
played by
knows? He says
Sting.
like two words, and Sting is Fade whatever.
Fade. He's the important
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, he's the cool one.
Um, yeah, so we meet them, we meet the doctor, the Baron starts floating.
Mm-hmm.
This actor, who whatever his name is, I wish I could
Oh,
remember his name so I could give him credit.
who knows?
The actor who plays Baron Harkonnen he knows what movie he's in.
Right.
No one else knows. He knows he's
Yeah,
in Dune 84.
this is a completely different version. And we said this when watching. It's a completely different version than Stellan Skarsgård's Baron, which is
And it
awesome
may
and
not be
fantastic and
equally as good, but
terrifying.
it's
No, but it's
more fun.
so much more fun, and like it's
It is
indescribable. Really,
equally
it's
as enjoyable to
wild.
watch.
Absolutely, yeah, for completely different reasons.
Absolutely. I don't feel scared of him, which I know I'm
No,
supposed to, but
right?
he
No, he's
is
just he's a funny little monster,
it's
and
like
he's not little.
everybody else was like
He's a great big monster.
Kyle MacLachlan was in this and he's like, okay, I'm going to be
Mhm.
the greatest live action version of Paul Atreides to ever live. You're not going to be. This guy was like,
Sure,
I know I'm not going to be the greatest version of the Baron
right.
Harkonnen to ever
But
live,
I'm gonna be the most me version of it.
but
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
be the
make mine stand out,
hammiest. Yeah, and
you
boy
know?
was he.
Yes, and he's great. And that's my favorite part of the movie, I think.
And it's great, and it's good. He's awesome. But
We're back in
then
Arrakis.
Arrakis, yep.
And
So
Paul and his mother
Paul and Lady
in
Jessica escape because
yeah,
of the
well, yes,
voice.
because the voice. She is almost raped,
Yep, very rapey.
which I think she is almost raped in both the book and the new movie as well.
Probably, yeah. I think
It's
it's
at least
yeah,
implied. It's one of those things
right,
like if you know, you know, you know.
right, right.
So Paul flies the
So
ship. They crash in the desert.
yeah,
Dune
then they
Dune
fall,
ensues.
they fall into the Fremen place, and then they're just there, and then it's the scene from the end
And
of
they're
the first
automatically in the
Dune,
south.
but yes, that's right. They're
And there's a
automatically in
worm.
the
There's a
south.
worm chasing them.
There's a worm chasing them. It very quickly speed runs the end
Right.
of Dune Part One
And
and
two.
and
and
the
like the
very
middle chunk of
beginning
2.
of the very beginning to middle chunk of Dune Part 2, where
And there's a part you
he's
might remember from part
instantly
2.
accepted into the Fremen
Yes,
and given his
instantly
Muad'Dib
accepted.
Usul name.
And
Like
also one of the
he's
things they
in, he's
cut,
locked in.
one of the things
Hmm.
they cut, there's this idea that like, oh, the Fremen are exist in like different tribes. And so
Right,
people
right.
always
And
think like, oh, there's only a few Fremen, but there's actually millions.
mm,
And they just speed run that by saying all of the Fremen are together,
they're all just here. Yeah,
which is
they're
fine.
all in
It's
this one place where you happen to land in the
And
south.
I will say this. I genuinely I'll say this. The stuff that
Mm,
they cut to make time, they cut the right stuff.
sure, sure.
They did a
Yeah,
really good as far as taking
they knew
something
what to cut, and it worked. Yeah,
as dense as Dune and condensing it down, they did a really good job.
right.
And
Yeah.
I think the like little things like that, like okay, we're gonna cut all of the tribes and make it one big tribe of Fremen. Great idea.
Hmm.
Is cutting the
Sure. Yeah.
training montage where Paul learns to how to sand walk. Cut that, right? Like let's
Right. Cut
streamline
sand
this
walking
process.
as a whole. Yeah.
Right. Don't do it. They did show the scene that the new movie cut, interestingly enough, where
Mm,
Paul and Lady Jessica are chased by a worm on their way to the Fremen, and we see the scale of the
right.
worm, and that's important.
Right. Big worm, but not the biggest worm.
Because the biggest worm will come
Because
later.
I'm the biggest
But yeah,
worm.
we see like a montage of Paul training the
Yeah.
other Fremen, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's doing cool stuff.
Silly scene. And then he shows him his weird sound gun thing, and he used it to destroy a
Right,
rock.
it's a big
And
pyramid
that's
rock.
fucking stupid and funny, and it's great.
He said, "Kick it," and then the guy
Yeah, he
kicks
says,
it,
"Kick it, beat it, yell at it."
and then the guy just goes, "Break!"
Yeah, and it's
Um,
set up for his
and then
Muad'Dib powers.
there's dialogue because the whole movie, we forgot to
Yes,
mention this, the movie's narrated by the Emperor's daughter,
right. Yeah,
and it only happens like three
as
times in
well
the
as
whole movie
as well as being narrated
by
by
everyone else.
everyone that's thinking ever. Yeah,
Yeah, so then there's a thing where the emperor, and I think the book is narrated by the emperor's daughter. It's been a minute since
probably
I've read the
whatever.
first Dune book. I read the rest of them much more recently.
Sure, sure.
um
Yeah, readings for nerds, but yeah.
right. What are you, a nerd? You read? You know how to read?
Right. You know how to read. Look, for the last time, I know how to read and write. I just don't like to read and write. Okay.
um but no, so then it just basically like plot jumps, and it's like, okay, we're 2 years in the future. it's
Right.
it's it's
Yeah.
2 years he's been training
Oh,
with him, whatever, and then Paul says, I've got one more thing to
Lady
do.
Jessica drank the water, and it
Right.
woke up and pre-birthed her daughter, Paul's sister,
Yes, Alia.
and Alia, yeah, and then jumped 2 years, and she's 2 years old, but also
And
maybe
none of
super.
that is explained. If you see the new
Right.
movie, you're like, oh yes, the water of life, the juice. It's
Okay,
the
she
it's
gave
the
it the
juice of the
consciousness of
sandworm. It
the
makes
whatever.
sense, and the conscious and
Sure.
whatever. They don't explain any of that in this movie.
No, it just kind of happens. But
It
yeah,
just
who
happens.
cares?
It's
Why
like
not?
it had to happen, so it happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it did have to happen.
Uh,
It's part of the story.
and it did have to happen, and it did happen. Yeah, that's true. All those
Right.
things and
And
a
I
bag of
guess
potato
if you
chips.
don't know Dune, it doesn't matter what the water of life is. It only matters to those of us
Right.
who know Dune. Um,
Correct.
but anyway, so we jump 2 years into the future, and Paul basically at this moment decides he's got to drink the water of life himself. His sister has been
Mhm.
born. He's been training with a Fremen. He's got two things left to do. He's got to ride the Shalud.
Right.
What is it? Shalud.
The Shai Halud, I think.
Shai
Shai
Halud.
Halud.
Yeah, he's got to
Yeah.
ride the Shai Halud, and he has to drink the water of life. So he rides the sandworm, and they
Yep.
do a. This is what we were talking about earlier. They do
Yeah.
such an
Great job of
amazing
showing
job.
scale.
It
Because
looks
yeah, I mean, in the new one, like
incredible.
I didn't even like other than the fact that they said, "Oh, that's the biggest
It's the
sandworm ever."
biggest one that's ever been
That's the
called.
legendary giant sandworm. Like I wouldn't have known that. I would have been like, "Oh, it's another big ass fucking sandworm."
But in this one, it
but
like you can
it
tell,
really shows that this is the
and
biggest sandworm ever.
the
Yeah.
practical effects in this movie are
Oh, it's
so
so
good.
cool. Yeah.
And the only thing with the effects in this movie that I'm like, man, this dates it is the compositing. So the green
Sure.
screen, the chroma
Yeah.
key never looks good. There's always a little black rim around everyone who does
Right.
anything. But the miniatures and the
But
practical
yeah, the
sandworms, like
miniatures and the practical sandworms are awesome.
it really is a shame that we'll never see that again in
Right.
any
Never say
version of
never.
Dune. Ah, well, you think Denis Villeneuve is going to do it? And you think they're
Yeah,
going to
for
make a
sure.
different version of Dune after his trilogy's done in
Oh, they
like
might
soon?
in 20 years.
Right. And in
Yeah,
20 years,
you
there
never know.
no movies won't
We'll
even have real
forget about
actors,
it. Right.
you
We'll
know?
all be AI. Yeah.
So it is nice to see a practical
Right.
sandworm. It's nice to see little miniatures, Getty Prime being a
And it's good.
miniature.
It looks very good
So good.
too.
Everything in this movie, other than the compositing,
Right.
looks
It looks
great.
good. Yeah.
Um, and then after that, he wakes up in a cold sweat with Chani next to him, and we're gonna talk about her character. I think at the end, I
Right.
want to
She's
save that.
in it. That's about
I
it.
want to
That's all you
save
can
the
say.
changes they made to her in the new movies towards
Right.
the
She's
end.
no Zendaya.
Um, but yeah, he wakes up and he's like, "Hey, I've got to drink the water of life," and she's like, "Okay." And so they go and they
All
tie
right,
him up
sure.
in the
Yeah, they
desert,
just tie him up in the middle of the desert and then he just
which is
drinks it.
weird. Every version of
Strange,
this,
but
every version of Dune that's been done has done that way
mm,
differently. In
yeah.
the newest one is the only
The
one where
new one,
Chani
it was
doesn't
just
give it to him.
mm,
Um, but in this one, it's just they literally tie him up in the middle of the desert and lay him down. In the sci-fi miniseries, they do it in the temple, and so
right,
that's where they give it to him. In the newest version, he does it himself, and then Chani comes later and like wakes him up.
right.
They don't do any of that here. It's just he's in the desert, and then he wakes
He's
up
in the
and he
desert and
sees the
he
moon
does it.
and
The
he
moon,
sees the future.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
right.
future,
Whatever. Who cares?
yeah, and it
He's Paul
happens, and
Muad'Dib. He
then
can see the future.
he's Palmudib Lisanul
And
Gaib
this is when
Bizak Habrak.
this is when he hatches his plan, which makes sense.
Yep,
He can see the
he
future
puts
now,
some
so
shit
he
out.
hatches his plan. The Emperor is on his way to Arrakis, and the Emperor is coming to Arrakis because Paul and the Fremen have put spice production in an absolute halt. They've stopped
Mhm.
all spice production.
They've just been
Spice is
fucking shit up
necessary.
for the last 2 years. Yeah,
Spice is number one. It sells a lot. They say in this movie, they mention that
right,
they sell a
money.
lot of spice, and also it's necessary for intergalactic space travel. So without spice,
Right,
there is
it's
no traveling through
oil.
space. So the Emperor decides to come to Arrakis to see what's up and talk to the Baron. So he gets to Arrakis, he lands, and Paul is hatching his plan. They use the atomics or the nukes. They use the atomics to break down the barrier between where
Right, it's the
um
nuke from Oppenheimer. It's just
it it's
it's a little
literally just a
crumb, some
little
stuff, some
tiny
stuff.
crumble.
Wall crumbles, yeah. But
Um
then, yeah, cool, good.
and then they ride the worms into where the Emperor is
Right,
at.
worms.
But instead of it's a little different in this. Instead of the Emperor being in the room with Paul and the rest of the Fremen, they send
Right,
Alia in, and she looks like 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5, probably 4 or 5.
yeah.
She looks 4 to 5, but she speaks like a grown woman, so they ADR'd
Mhm.
her. I kind of like it, if I'm
It's
being honest.
interesting. It's weird. It's fine.
I think it's probably how they did it in the book.
Maybe I don't know.
That's
But
what it
it,
feels like.
yeah, it's strange and it's it's
Which is
happening.
fine.
It's
I'm all for Strange in Dune.
right.
The
Yeah, because it's
tune? Did
new.
1984 Dune?
No, but yeah, so she does that and she's there and then she pulls the
She pulls the
plug
Gom
on the
Jabbar on the Baron and
yeah, and
stabs him in
then
the neck and then pulls all of his cords
sends
out.
him into
And
space.
then she blows up a wall with the
Yeah,
weirding
and he
way.
just goes flying out. Yeah, I
He
guess. I
flies
don't
out, and if that wasn't enough, he flies into the mouth of a sandworm.
right.
And
Yeah. So
so there's a battle going on.
he's
We forgot to
cooked.
mention that Gurney aka Patrick Stewart, is back
Right.
with
Patrick
the.
Stewart showed back up with his dope long hair, but he's still
Oh
got male pattern
yes,
baldness. It's
he does.
awesome. It's
It's awesome.
hilarious. It's
He's bald.
great.
He's got a cul-de-sac in the middle, but it's long
Yeah,
like a
but then
mullet.
long ass mullet hair. It's
Call that
great.
a mare pattern bullet.
I won't, but you can if you want.
Mare patterned bullet.
Yeah, I heard it. No, I got it. So that's happening. He's there. Then Paul
Yeah,
Muad'Dib shows up
he's on the worm with him.
and fights
He up. He
Sting.
up. He's
He
up.
up. Emperor broke.
No, he well, yes, but also he up 2 a.m.
Baron
wiggling
broke.
his worm, riding his
Right.
worm.
He wriggling. He's shying his
Halud.
lose.
He up watering his life.
Yeah. So yeah,
He up quizzacking
Muad'Dib's
his Haderach.
he Muad'Dib's all over the place, and
He up
then he fights with Sting, and
He does
Sting
fight with Sting, and they don't really set it up well.
no, just kind of happens.
It does very
He
much.
just says, "Hey, give the Harkonnen a knife. I will fight him."
They don't even say why.
No, like in the new one and probably the book, he was fighting on behalf of the Emperor,
Right. He
who
was
Paul
fighting
Muad'Dib was
for.
trying to fight.
Yeah, he was fighting for the throne.
Right.
May thy knife chip and
May
shatter.
that knife chip and shatter, which is hard as hell. That's,
That's a bar, dude.
That goes crazy.
They don't even say it in this movie. David Lynch wouldn't know a bar if it bit him in the bar.
Might, but
I mean, it's a bar about a bar.
well, what do I know?
I mean, it's not a joke. It's just a bar. But anyway,
Shut up.
yeah, it's not really set up the Sting fight. It's one of those things. It's what they did in the book, so they got to do it in the movie.
Right. So that happens. He
kills Sting.
Kills Sting. It's way lamer and less climactic than the new one.
But yeah, that's because the new one is
cool
like
and all-
one of the coolest fights in cinema.
Right.
Yeah. It's the fight in the new one is so good, dude.
It's cracked. Yeah.
Like it's less cool in this one, which is to be expected.
Which of course, because it's
and so then
1984.
Paul uses the voice, and it cracks the earth open. This is where things diverge.
He does the cool thing where he stabs him right through the throat,
cool,
and it goes through
you
his
see
mouth.
it in his mouth.
You see the knife in his mouth, and then he uses the voice on him. He yells the whatever their like the Fremen like war chant is, and it like it cracks.
It shatters the earth open.
Shatters the ground. Oh, we also established that them saying Muad'Dib with the weirding way gun worked as that's one of the weapon words.
And he says that. He says, "My name is a weapon."
My name is a weapon. It's like, all right, cool. I got it.
All right,
I got it. I saw it.
We get it. You don't like Jesus, Frank Herbert. We get it.
Right.
But yeah, so he uses the voice. It cracks and shatters the earth open.
Right.
Which is a big moment.
And shatters.
Which is when
and then it starts raining.
Which is when Alia says, "Don't you see? How could he do this?
Right.
For he is the
Kwisatz.
Which is the only way I can remember that name. It's the only one of the Messiah names I can remember, and it's because "For he is the Kwisatz" is burnt into my brain.
Right. Yeah, and then
he yells something else, and it starts raining.
Yeah, and
which is the end.
Yep. That's the end of the movie.
And look, that's people have a big problem with that. Dune fans in particular.
Right.
It works for this movie.
Sure, I guess.
It works for a standalone Dune plot.
It works in that this
doesn't continue.
Dumb and bare minimum.
Sure.
Yes.
I more mean it works for a Dune plot that doesn't continue.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm speaking as someone who knows nothing of outside of this specific Dune storyline.
But you know it continues.
Like, I don't know if it starts. Sure, but I don't know when it starts raining on Arrakis, if ever.
It never does, really. I think maybe Leto the Second makes it habitable.
Right. Well, he was a giant worm. So.
Right. But
I
the
mean,
point
if you're a
being, like,
giant worm, you can do anything.
the only thing with that where I'm like, they could have done a better job setting that up is had they set up the idea that, like, he was supposed to make Arrakis, like, habitable
Right, right.
again.
Yeah,
Because
I
the thing
mean,
with Arrakis that they don't
yeah,
really go into in this movie is Arrakis was at one point luscious
hmm
and habitable, and then
yeah,
over time of with the mining of the spice and all that kind of stuff,
right. With the mining and the spicing and the spicing and the
over
mining. Yeah.
10,000 years the planet became
hmm
completely inhabitable. That's why the Fremen feel like such an oppressed people group, is because
People group. Yeah.
their habitat, their planet, their whatever, their
Has
dune,
been their Arrakis, their Dune has been mined into
right, into
shit,
nothingness,
into
into a
nothing. Yeah, into
desert. um
desolate
and I don't think
nonsense.
any of the
Nothing.
movies really hammer that idea home well.
No, I mean they
This one
touch
does
on
it
it in
real bad.
the Villeneuve ones, but
But even then, like,
it's not a focus. Like it's like
right.
a one off thing they say in the first one.
Which it's the reason that, you know, the it's the reason that the
Yeah, I mean
Paul
it's yeah,
Muad'Dib
it's
is important, is to reverse
right.
that, um for them, not for him. But anyway, the
Mhm.
the movie
But
ends.
yeah, so then he
He
makes
gets
it
the Emperor
rain.
robe put on
It's
him,
he
and then it
gets
cuts to
yeah,
credits.
and it was good,
I like it
fine.
a lot.
I enjoy it. It's stupid. It's like it's
Yeah,
dumb,
it's
but
certainly not.
I do like it.
Because here's the thing: the new Dune movies are really good.
Yeah,
Like some of the best science fiction we've seen on
fantastic.
film in years, like
Right.
years, and that's not
Yeah.
an exaggeration. And if you don't like them,
Mhm.
shut up. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That's
You're a
fine.
nerd.
But the general consensus is, and my consensus is,
They're
especially after seeing
fantastic.
part two, they're
Yeah,
fantastic. I saw
they are
part one and I was
fantastic.
like, all right, fine, whatever. This is weird, pretentious. And then I saw part two and I was like, yes, I
Right.
get it. It
Okay,
was,
this is great.
yeah. This is
This is
not
great.
that.
No, this is 1980s sci-fi schlock with just enough weird David Lynch to make it stand out. And it
If
doesn't need to be any more than that.
if the new Dune movie is Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, one of the
Okay.
most
All right.
influential sci-fi films of all time,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
this is the 2011 Star Trek movie.
Mm.
It's a weird
Interesting.
version of the same genre.
Right.
Not nearly as good, not nearly as influential. Super fun though.
Sure. Sure. I get that. Yeah.
Does that reference make sense? Like,
I
this is
yeah.
J.J. Abrams'
This is J.J.
Star Trek
Abrams' Star
to
Trek.
George Lucas's Star Wars. Like,
Sure. Yeah,
you,
okay.
you tracking?
I'm I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm seeing the vision, the
Do you have a
focus.
better comparison?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I, I wasn't critiquing. All right, that's
No, it's
yeah,
just the way you
okay.
were saying it sounded very critique.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just well, it's a strange thing to
it is.
say,
Yeah, I know it's a weird comparison.
Um,
But the thing is, as much as J.J. Abrams' Star Trek really isn't anything of note, I really like it. And same with
no, it's
this
really
movie.
fun.
I
Yeah.
really like this because it is really fun and it's weird, and there's not a ton of movies like it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there is some generic
Yes.
just sci-fi schlock, but there's no other generic sci-fi schlock directed by one of the weirdest, most outlandish directors in the world, based on one of the most famous books
Sure.
ever written,
Right.
starring Kyle MacLachlan, that they've also remade twice since it came out. Like, it is its own thing. And
Right. It's
I
Dune.
enjoy that thing. And I like the Dune story. I think the plot of Dune, Frank Herbert, though he has his problems, Frank Herbert was a really good author and he made a really good
Right.
story and a really good world. And so it's worth, like, whatever version of that is made. I'm going to say this and I'm going to instantly regret it. Whatever
Okay.
version of that story and world is made, of Paul Atreides' story, whatever that
Oh,
looks
Hoodie.
like, it's gonna be fairly enjoyable because it's an enjoyable story to begin with.
Right, because the source material is so good and so interesting, even if it's not a perfect adaptation, it's still going to be good and interesting.
Right. You can't really ruin Dune
Yeah, I get that. I get
because
that.
Dune, in
Sure.
its worst adaptation, and we just watched it. This is because I've seen
Right.
the sci-fi series, and the sci-fi series is super accurate to the book. Whatever. Sci-fi series, I will
Right,
say, is a little
nerd.
more boring than this, but it's still
Mm,
interesting. Regardless, the worst Dune adaptation is still at its heart and core Dune, and so
right. And
there's
that's
gonna
fine.
and that's fun. It's a fun
Mhm.
world. It's a fun story. It's a fun character. Paul Atreides is a fun character to follow,
Look, it's my planet, my Arrakis, my Dune. You
right?
know, like what
Right.
more can you say?
And this, it's Dune Desert Planet, Arrakis
Right.
Dune Desert
Arrakis,
Planet.
Dune, desert planet. Yeah.
Yeah,
As Kyle Muad'Dib
and
says
so you
it.
take that, you take the fact that it's Dune, it's fun, it's whatever. It's made by this renowned weird director, making a weird story, admittedly, but this renowned weird director who
Making
admittedly
a
isn't
weird
for everybody.
story, but being controlled enough to not make it too weird.
He's on a
Whether
leash.
whether that he's on a leash, whether that was in the actual filmmaking or afterwards, whatever.
It
He was
seems like most
controlled.
of
He
that
was
happened in the
restrained.
editing room. And I, once
Right.
again, I think, not once again, I haven't said this before.
You
I
thought
think
it though. You thought it to narrate. You know.
I think most of David Lynch's weird stuff comes from the editing room. I think I've talked to Josh about this in the past. I
Sure.
think David Lynch's weirdness comes from the editing of his movies, not from the
I think
movies
it
themselves.
comes from a malignant brain tumor.
I think it
Yeah.
probably comes from schizophrenia as well.
Yeah.
But no, there's there's the David Lynch of it all, which
Uh-huh.
this is my favorite kind of David Lynch, which is why I like Elephant Man. It's why I like Mulholland Drive. It's why I like the first season of Twin Peaks. There's David Lynch on a leash,
Yep, yep, yep.
mixed with This Is Dune, mixed with the beautiful execution of the score, the beautiful execution of the costume design, the beautiful execution of the
Mhm.
set design. Like all of that stuff is done
Just the
so
great,
well.
the whole aesthetic of this movie really is great. Just the general look and feel and sound is like everything about that is it's on, it's
the
locked in.
The thing holding this movie back is the fact that it was only one movie,
Right.
or the
Yeah.
fact that it was a shortish movie.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe that's fixed in
Could a
the
3 hour
3 hour
version of
long
this
movie.
movie? Yeah,
Who
we just
knows?
chose not to watch that
I won't
version.
find out probably ever,
I
but
might, but probably
someone
not.
might. Yeah. Who knows? That's fine.
But no, the question is, do you think this movie
Mhm.
holds up? Yes and no.
Yes, as what it is, as a silly schlocky 80s David Lynch sci-fi movie.
And this
I
is
mean,
another one of those
probably.
things. I
I
guess
mean,
it was
I'm not a
last week,
Dune nerd,
right?
so I can't really say this, but I'm gonna anyways. As a Dune movie, it holds up enough in that it tells the Dune story. You
I was
know.
gonna say that. I think this movie, it's kind of like last week, where I think this movie holds up better now than it did when it came out, or maybe that was whenever I said that.
Whenever that
Um,
was, yeah.
I think this movie, now that Dune has become kind of like a mainstream popular thing,
Right, right.
this movie is better knowing the Dune story than it is without it. Because without knowing anything
Right.
about Dune, you're
Yes.
going to be lost and bored the whole time. But if you know
Yeah,
the story
yeah.
of Dune, at the very least, you've seen the two new movies. You're
Which
going
is
to be
all I know.
engaged. You're going to be like legitimately, you're going to be engaged in the story. You're going to be able to follow along.
Yeah.
But if you don't know that, I think it could probably be a pretty challenging
No, I think
story to
I
get
think
through.
this is best. This movie is best viewed having seen the two new movies. Maybe also while knowing the story of the book, which I mean that's just
which yeah.
watch the new movies, whatever.
Right. This
But
movie is best viewed when you get back home from the theater after seeing Dune 2 and you're like, I want to watch
right,
more
you're
Dune.
like, I
Watch
want more
this. Put this
Dune.
on.
Watch this, yeah.
And then after
But
that, watch
maybe
the
have a
sci-fi
couple drinks
series.
first.
Right.
Sure, I guess I can't
Definitely probably have a
advocate
couple
that.
drinks
Have a
first.
couple drinks, hit your Delta 8 pen, whatever,
Right.
whatever you do.
But I do think this movie holds up.
Maybe
And I
drop
think
some acid. I don't know.
I think this movie holds up in a really weird way because it's a really weird movie, but it definitely deserves its place as a cult classic.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's one that I like. I will watch this movie again. And that's
I probably will.
like, I don't
I'm
know.
sure I will.
There's something
I don't
about
know that
this
I'll ever
movie.
watch the 3-hour long one, but
I might.
possibly. Yeah, I can't say I won't. I can't
I
definitively
can
say I
tell
won't.
I like this movie more than you,
Oh well, sure.
but
Yeah,
I'm more
I
of a
totally
David
get
Lynch
that.
fan than you, and I'm more of a
Right,
Dune
and
fan
more
than
of a
you.
Dune fan.
Right.
Yeah, so that's of course.
But yeah, I think this is definitely
No,
something
this
I'll come
movie
back
was
to years
it was
later.
fine. It was very fun. A lot more fun than I expected.
If I'm
Because
doing
I
a
wasn't
Dune
expecting
binge,
much from this. Right.
if I'm doing a Dune binge and I watch both of the Dennis the Menace movies, I'll probably
Mhm.
put this one on. You know what I'm saying? Just because I want more Dune.
Now,
Dune 2
are you
ends
putting this one? Are you putting this one on before or after the sci-fi series?
before the sci-fi series.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Even though the sci-fi series is probably better than this.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Here's what I'm probably doing. I'm probably doing both of the Dennis the Menace movies. So here's the story of
Sure.
Dune, and then I'm doing this story of Dune recap, and then I'm skipping the first sci-fi series and going straight to Children of
Right.
Dune, the second sci-fi series.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
But yeah, and then the last the we did all of our questions, so we're done with this.
No. Would you recommend this movie? That's one of them.
I would never recommend watching this movie alone if you're not a
I
Dune
would
or David
never.
Lynch fan.
I wouldn't recommend watching it alone or sober unless, yeah, you're a Dune or David Lynch
If
fan.
you're a Dune or David Lynch fan, I don't know why you haven't already seen this movie.
Right. I'm sure you have.
You probably
Just
have,
watch
which
it.
is why you're
Watch it
watching
again.
this.
Yeah.
If you're a
Watch the 3-hour long director's cut
might
and
as
let
well.
us know
Let's know if it's any
if
better.
it's worth it. Drop it in the
We
comments or
saw
DM
we
me on
saw
Instagram
drawings
and
at the
send it
beginning. We were like,
comments.
I'm not watching this.
Yeah, I was out, and also I found out it was 3 hours. Fuck
Right,
that.
right. We'd still be
Um,
watching it. That's not true. We would be.
Probably
We'd
not,
still
but
be doing this
whatever.
podcast.
Yeah, and that's the problem. So
But no, the
yeah,
if you're a Dune or David Lynch fan and or you saw the two new movies and you're just like, man, I want to watch more Dune,
right.
then I would recommend this movie. It's different and
Yeah.
it's weird, but it's fun weird and it's fun different. Yeah.
Yep.
That's it.
And
That's a semi-pro film
thanks
show.
for watching.
We've got a Patreon. We mentioned it
Check out the
earlier.
Patreon. It's $1.
It's literally only
Um,
$1. It'll
a
make you
single
holler.
dollar. That's it. I can't promise it'll make you. It made me
I
personally
can.
holler.
I can promise it'll make them
Um,
holler.
Okay. See, I'm not putting my reputation on the line and saying that. If you don't holler, you don't come at me.
If you don't holler, that's on you, not on us.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
Patreon
you're
$1
from
guaranteed to make you holler.
right.
It's
I'm
guaranteed.
not guaranteeing that. It's guaranteed holler. Yeah, thanks for watching.
We got the
Hit that
Patreon. What else we got?
subscribe.
Oh,
Ring the
Daniel,
bell.
would you like to let them know what film we're going to be checking out next week?
Oh boy, do I know. Patrick Swayze. We're gonna bust Patrick Swayze. We're gonna bust Patrick Swayze, whatever.
We're gonna
The
bust
movie Ghost.
Bruce Willis from the end of Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. We're watching
I'm gonna
Ghostbusters.
sneeze. Yeah. Some of them. One of them. All of them, maybe.
All of
Who
them.
knows? Check back in later and send this podcast to me.
If you can find Daniel's phone number, send him the podcast.
Yeah.
If you're Daniel's dad, thanks for being such a supporter of the show.
Yeah, thanks for being a real one.
You a G. And
Check out the
hey,
Patreon. It's
I
$1.
appreciate you impregnating a woman to bring this man because I love him. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next
Yeah, I
time.
appreciate that as well.
We'll see you next time on the next
Thanks for
episode.
thanking of us.
On the
The
next
Pro Show.
on the next episode of Semi Pro.
Ho show ho for show.